Late one night in the forests near Chennai, a mysterious figure quietly pulls a lifeless body from the trunk of his car. He pours gasoline over it and sets it ablaze. The flames consume the body, leaving behind nothing but ashes. By morning, the discovery makes headlines across the city. At the same time, a group of criminals carries out a daring robbery at a pawn company, stealing gold jewelry and stacks of cash. But when a security guard tries to fight back, one of the robbers panics and pulls the trigger. The Chennai police immediately assign the case to one of their best officers, Aravind, a smart, tough, and highly experienced detective known for solving even the most complicated crimes. But this case was different. This is 11. It doesn't take him long to trace the robbers' movements and present his findings to the department. He explains that this gang has been targeting small financial firms one by one. To catch them, Aravind comes up with a clever trap. He instructs his team to pose as customers pawning jewelry, each piece secretly fitted with a GPS tracker. When the gang picks up the bait, Aravind follows the signal straight to their hideout. Without backup, he storms the place himself and takes down the entire crew. Moments later, his team arrives to arrest the stunned criminals. News of the successful capture spreads quickly, and Aravind's reputation for brilliance grows even stronger. Soon, the department gives him a new mission, this time to hunt down a dangerous drug network spreading across the city. Meanwhile, another burnt body is discovered, and the police form a special investigation unit led by an officer named Ranjit. As Ranjit digs into the string of charred corpses, Aravind continues his own mission. When the third victim is found, the forensic doctor confirms a disturbing pattern. Each victim is killed with a clean gunshot, no torture, no struggle, and afterward the bodies are burned beyond recognition. Weeks turn into months, and the death toll rises to 6. Fear grips the public, and the police face growing criticism for their failure to stop the killer. Under pressure, the department gives Ranjit a final warning. At the same time, Aravind successfully raids a drug warehouse, discovering the pills are so toxic that taking just 4 or 5 can cause permanent brain damage. One night, as Ranjit continues to obsess over the serial case, he receives a mysterious call and rushes out. But on the road, his car is struck and flips over. The crash leaves him in a coma. With Ranjit hospitalized, the police assign Aravind to take over the investigation, assisted by another officer named Manohar. Based on the evidence, the killer appears to be a psychopath with an unusually high IQ. The department hopes Aravind can solve the case before the Central Bureau steps in. Aravind begins by asking Manohar to revisit every crime scene where a burnt body was found. He quickly realizes why Ranjit struggled to make progress because there are no CCTV recordings, no fingerprints, not even a single strand of hair. Every victim is dumped far outside the city, and all appear to be around the same age, roughly in their 30s. Yet none of them match any missing person reports. Later that night, while heading home, Manohar opens up about his personal life. He has a young son he loves deeply, and he's been raising him alone since his wife died in a car accident a year ago. The next morning, while continuing his investigation, Aravind's car suddenly breaks down on a quiet road. He waits for help, and soon a car stops. Behind the wheel is a woman named Sanjana. From there, the story takes us 8 months back. At that time, Sanjana's parents had arranged a meeting for her with a man they hoped she might marry. She wasn't interested in the idea at all but decided to meet him anyway. They told her to look for a man wearing a gray shirt. As she scanned the cafe, she spotted someone who fit the description and approached him. What she didn't know was that she had mistaken Aravind, who was actually on an undercover mission observing a drug ring. Even after Aravind told her she had the wrong person, Sanjana was captivated at first sight. His calm presence and confidence left a strong impression on her. Moments later, Aravind was ambushed by members of the drug gang. With precise moves, he fought them off one by one. And Sanjana, watching from nearby, fell even deeper in admiration. Since that day, she couldn't get him out of her mind. She started following him at work, quietly observing from a distance, even finding out where he lived. Aravind, however, never acknowledged her attention. Eventually, she managed to get his phone number and tried calling, but he never picked up. Now, with his car broken down, fate brings them together again. Out of options, Aravind accepts her offer for a ride. Later that day, Aravind visits Ranjit in the hospital, who is still in a coma after his accident. That same night, the serial killer strikes again. A lone woman waiting at a bus stop becomes his next target. As always, he wears a mask, stuns his victim with an electric shock, and later burns the body inside an abandoned factory. The case shocks the city once more. Reporters surround Aravind for answers, but he simply assures them that he will find the killer. In the autopsy room, the forensic doctor reveals that the victim was shot in the head at close range and then burned. But this time, there's a clue. A small metal implant is found in the victim's right ankle, likely inserted 4 or 5 months ago after a fracture. Following that lead, Aravind meets with an orthopedic specialist. The doctor explains that this particular implant is a new model approved for use just a year earlier. Aravind requests a list of all patients who underwent ankle surgery in the past 7 months, believing it could reveal the victim's identity. The implant is also engraved with the manufacturer's name, KSP. As Aravind prepares to leave the hospital, he notices Manohar entering a cardiac surgeon's office. Curious, he asks the doctor what his colleague was doing there. The doctor quietly explains that Manohar suffers from a rare heart condition and urgently needs a transplant to survive. The next day, the doctor sends the list of patients, and Aravind immediately narrows it down to 7 names, all men around 30 years old. If one of them can't be located, that person must be the victim. Aravind and Manohar begin visiting them one by one until they reach the last name, a man named Sudhakar. At his home, they find Sudhakar alive, recovering from an ankle surgery scar, living with his paralyzed father. As Sudhakar steps away to fetch them water, Aravind's eyes catch a photo and a book sitting on top of the refrigerator. He makes a mental note of it, then leaves the house with Manohar. Not long after, Sanjana calls Aravind and asks him to meet her that evening at the same restaurant where they first met. She says she needs to talk to him about something important. When Aravind arrives, Sanjana finally confesses her feelings. She admits she's fallen deeply in love with him and wants to marry him. But Aravind, cold and distant as ever, tells her that what she feels is only temporary and that she should marry the man her parents have chosen instead. His words cut deep. Sanjana's heart breaks, and tears fill her eyes. Before leaving, she tells Aravind that one day, he'll come looking for her. The next morning, another burnt body is found, the 8th victim, again near the outskirts of Chennai. A police officer reports to Aravind that the day before, a homeless man had come to the local station claiming to have witnessed something strange. He said he saw a bus and a woman being attacked by a man in a jacket. But because his speech was unclear and disjointed, the officers dismissed him and sent him away. Aravind decides to find the man himself. He sits with him and patiently asks him to describe what he saw. The man explains that he witnessed a masked figure shocking a woman until she passed out, then stuffing her body into the trunk of a car. The beggar also says he often saw the same woman riding her motorcycle past his spot every day. But that day, she must have taken the bus because her bike was broken. That detail catches Aravind's attention. He begins piecing the situation together. If her motorcycle was being repaired, her house must be nearby. He visits the closest repair shop, and the mechanic confirms that 2 days earlier, a woman had dropped off her bike for service. Unfortunately, the license plates were too rusted to identify. Thinking quickly, Aravind checks under the seat and finds a photocopy of the registration papers. The owner's name is Mira, and her address is listed right there. Without wasting any time, Aravind and Manohar drive straight to Mira's house. To their surprise, Mira is home, though she seems nervous. Her parents, she explains, are out of town. One of the officers remembers seeing her at the station recently as she'd come in to report a missing puppy. When Aravind asks where she was 2 nights ago, Mira insists she was at home. But her uneasy expression gives her away. Aravind also notices the sofa is spotless, not a single trace of pet hair, proving she lied about having a dog. Moments later, Manohar makes a startling discovery. He finds a photo of Mira with someone who looks exactly like her. Mira has a twin sister. In the same album, there's another picture from their high school days at a school called Twin Birds where, incredibly, 11 pairs of twins were all in the same class. Following this lead, Aravind and Manohar return to Sudhakar's house. There they uncover an almost identical photo, Sudhakar standing beside his own twin brother, hidden away in a suitcase, along with the same Twin Birds class photo. The pieces begin to fit together. When they start questioning them, the truth finally comes out. The people they met earlier aren't Sudhakar and Mira at all, they're their twins, Surinder and Tara. Surinder begins to explain what really happened. About a month ago, his twin brother Sudhakar sent him a message saying he'd be home late because of overtime at work. Around the same time, Tara received a similar message from her twin sister Mira, saying she'd be spending the night at a friend's house and would come home the next morning. But neither of them ever returned. A few days later, both Surinder and Tara received a video call from an unknown number. On the screen was the serial killer and beside him, their twins, tied up and terrified. The killer gave them a chilling ultimatum: follow his orders, and their siblings would be released. Refuse, and they'd be killed. Desperate and afraid, Tara tried to go to the police. But as soon as she reached the station, the killer called her again, warning that he'd kill Mira if she said a single word to the authorities. Terrified, she backed away and made up a story about a missing puppy to cover her tracks. Not long after, the killer instructed both of them to come to a remote construction site. When they arrived, someone knocked them unconscious. They woke up hours later inside the half-built structure. The killer appeared again through a video call, ordering them to walk to a nearby tent. Inside, they found a person bound and covered with a cloth, along with a gun left for them. He told them to shoot, or their siblings' heads would be drowned until they died. With no choice left, they pulled the trigger without knowing who they were killing.
6, 5, 4.
When they came to again, they were back at the same location where they had first been abducted. Still shaken, they returned home, hoping their twins might walk through the door. Instead, they received a message from the killer. Attached was the video of their crime. When the cloth was removed, it was their own twins, Sudhakar and Mira. They had unknowingly killed them with their own hands. The killer warned that if they told anyone, he would release the footage to the public. Out of fear, they decided to assume their twins' identities when the police arrived, pretending to be Sudhakar and Mira. Later, Aravind and Manohar interrogate them together. Aravind quickly realizes the video call must have been pre-recorded, used to manipulate them into carrying out the murders. Knowing that all of them once attended the same school, he asks if there's anyone they remember who might have had a motive for revenge. Both Surinder and Tara mention the same name, Benjamin, a classmate from their high school days. Meanwhile, Aravind also learns that Sanjana, the woman who once confessed her love to him, was in that same class too, along with her twin sister Anjana. During questioning, Surinder admits to something strange. He says he deliberately cut his own leg to create a scar identical to his brother's old surgical mark because ever since childhood, he and Sudhakar had always wanted to remain the same in every way, with no difference between them. Before leaving, Surinder and Tara share a few details about an incident that happened back in school. Unfortunately, they no longer have the contact information of their former classmates. Aravind warns them not to speak about the case to anyone for their own safety. After they leave, Aravind turns to Manohar and says that parts of their story sounded honest but other parts didn't add up. To uncover the truth, he decides to visit their old school, Twin Birds, himself. Manohar agrees, adding that he now believes the 7th victim was Sudhakar, and the 8th was Mira, and that the earlier victims might also have been from the same class. The next morning, Aravind and Manohar visit the headmistress of Twin Birds School. Aravind explains that in the past year, 8 murders have taken place and every single victim was a former student from the same class in this old photograph. Before Aravind can even name the main suspect, the headmistress immediately says the name Benjamin. She then begins to recount the story of how the school began 23 years ago. At first, it was just an ordinary school she built together with her husband, but 2 years later, something unusual happened. 6 pairs of twins enrolled at the same time. Local media quickly caught wind of it, and the school became famous across Chennai. Seeing the attention it brought, her husband came up with a clever idea. Any twins who wanted to attend would only need to pay the admission fee for 1 child instead of 2. That marketing move changed everything. Enrollment skyrocketed, and soon the school rebranded itself as Twin Birds. Then came the year 2006, when Chennai hosted a major citywide chess tournament. The champion that year was a boy named Benjamin, who had a twin brother named Francis. Impressed by his talent, the headmistress's husband decided to offer Benjamin a scholarship, believing that if he won more tournaments, it would make Twin Birds even more prestigious. When the couple visited Benjamin and Francis at their home, they were heartbroken by what they found. The twins were living in poverty near the roadside. Their parents had died in a car accident, and the boy survived by taking small jobs while studying at a nearby public school. Wanting to give them a better life, especially since Francis suffered from mild mental challenges, the headmistress's husband invited them to live in the school's dormitory. On their first day at Twin Birds, the brothers were overjoyed. For the first time, they were surrounded by other twins just like them. As expected, Benjamin began winning chess competitions one after another, and soon the school's reputation soared. Meanwhile, Francis turned out to be brilliant in academics, consistently ranking first in his class. It wasn't long before both brothers became the pride of Twin Birds. Teachers adored them, and they were often held up as examples for other students. But not everyone admired them. Among their classmates, especially the other twin pairs, jealousy began to grow. The admiration turned into resentment. During a parent-teacher meeting, Benjamin and Francis stood in for their parents, representing themselves with quiet dignity. The headmistress was deeply moved by their maturity. But that only made things worse. The other students, and even their parents, started comparing their own children to the twins, fueling more bitterness and envy. One afternoon in the school canteen, a few boys began mocking Francis, calling him crazy because of his mental condition. Benjamin couldn't bear it. Furious, he fought them, leaving his bullies bruised and bloodied. The headmistress scolded the class for their cruelty, but also punished Benjamin for resorting to violence. That day, she realized beneath his intelligence and charm, there was a temper he struggled to control. Soon after, the national-level chess championship was announced. Benjamin was chosen to represent the school, and the headmistress, who was once a chess champion herself, began training him personally. Every day after class, they practiced together. But Benjamin could never seem to beat her. His moves were sharp, yet something held him back. The headmistress began to think he wasn't ready and considered replacing him in the competition. Sensing this, Benjamin asked for one final chance. This time, he played differently. He defeated her easily. When she asked what had changed, Benjamin simply said that he always lost on purpose before, because he saw her as a mother figure, and in his eyes, a mother should always win. His words touched her deeply, but what struck her even more was his incredible mind. His chess strategy wasn't just about planning one or two moves ahead, as he always had a third plan waiting in reserve. Every piece he moved carried three possible outcomes already mapped in his mind. His opponents never saw it coming until it was too late. Suddenly, the power goes out. In that moment, the headmistress discovers Francis suffers from an extreme fear of the dark, a condition called nyctophobia. Soon after, the day of the national chess tournament arrives. Benjamin travels to New Delhi with the headmistress's husband, while she stays behind, promising to look after Francis. But with Benjamin gone, the bullying intensifies. The other students torment Francis more cruelly than ever, and with no one to defend him, the trauma only deepens. Still, Francis keeps his pain to himself. When Benjamin returns, holding the national championship trophy, Francis says nothing. He doesn't want his brother's temper to flare up or cause more trouble. Days later, on the twins' birthday, the students are split between two labs for class, one group in physics, the other in chemistry. Francis is assigned to the chemistry lab. That day, one of the students overhears a teacher mentioning Francis's fear of the dark and tells his classmates. When Francis arrives, they decide to turn off the lights. The prank turns tragic. Francis collapses in panic, convulsing in the darkness, and by the time the lights come back on, it's too late. He doesn't survive. Benjamin is shattered. At the funeral, he weeps uncontrollably, remembering every moment they shared. For days, he locks himself away, consumed by grief. 3 days after Francis's death, he returns to the classroom to see the desk where their initials are carved. As he runs his fingers over the wood, his eyes harden with hatred. He stares at his classmates with silent fury, the seed of vengeance already taking root. Then he learns an even harsher truth. The headmistress's husband has covered up Francis's death to protect the school's reputation. The police and the media never hear about it. To him, Francis's life and Benjamin's talent are just tools for the school's success. Soon after, a nun from the school asks permission to take Benjamin away, explaining that staying there would only worsen his trauma. That was the last time the headmistress ever saw him. A few weeks later, the nun informs her that Benjamin has been adopted by someone new. Not long after that, tragedy strikes again. A mysterious fire breaks out at Twin Birds, forcing the school to close permanently. The headmistress's husband, unable to cope with guilt and loss, turns to alcohol and eventually dies. Hearing this, Aravind expresses his condolences. Then he asks for the records of Benjamin's classmates, hoping to connect the dots between the school's past and the present murders. The headmistress, who has kept the old enrollment book safely preserved, hands it over. Comparing the details with recent case files, Aravind realizes the killer Benjamin has been targeting his former classmates, each murdered on their own birthday. Just like Francis, who died on his. Aravind immediately orders Manohar to find the remaining 6 classmates and verify the fates of their twin siblings. Meanwhile, he focuses on the last 2 pairs likely to be next, Sanjana and Anjana, Dhiran and Dhiraj. Aravind visits Sanjana's home and is greeted by her twin sister, Anjana. Sanjana lights up when she sees him, but her excitement fades when he explains why he's there. He tells the family everything and asks permission to move both sisters somewhere safe. For now, that safe place is Manohar's house. While Aravind protects the twins, Manohar interrogates the other classmates. Each one reveals they too were forced or manipulated, just like Surinder and Tara. Now, only Dhiran and Dhiraj remain. But when Aravind arrives at their last known address, he learns they moved away years ago. Their mother has passed away, and the small shop once owned by the family is now run by 2 men who say the twins haven't been seen in a very long time. The The trail has gone cold, but Aravind knows the killer's plan isn't over yet. The next morning, the 9th victim is found. When Aravind arrives at the scene, he confirms the body belongs to the run. Later, he explains his findings to the police chief. Based on the statements from Surinder and Tara, every single victim so far had one thing in common. They were all students assigned to the physics lab on the day Francis died, not the chemistry lab. And that day, Dhiran had been in the physics lab too. Aravind believes this pattern is no coincidence. Benjamin is deliberately targeting the students who were in that room. He wants their surviving siblings to feel the same kind of pain and loss he once did. Confident that the case is nearing its end, Aravind promises the department that he'll bring Benjamin to justice. Around that time, the police receive news that Ranjit has finally recovered from his coma and returned home. Aravind visits him to hear his account of the night he was injured. Ranjit explains that his car accident was a setup. The serial killer, Benjamin, caused it. That night, Ranjit had received a message about a newly discovered body. But when he followed the lead, it turned out to be a trap. On the road, a black Mercedes swerved in front of him, blocking his view. He didn't notice the pile of debris deliberately placed in his path. His car crashed and flipped. Even in his half-conscious state, Ranjit remembers something strange. He swears it was Benjamin himself who pulled him from the wreckage and drove him to the hospital. That detail leaves Aravind puzzled. Why would Benjamin, who wanted him dead, also save his life? On his way back, Aravind receives a call from the headmistress of Twin Birds. She says she has something important to tell him but makes him promise not to harm Benjamin, because to her, he'll always be that brilliant, broken boy she once taught. She explains that every year, on the anniversary of Francis's death, she visits his grave early in the morning to leave flowers. And every year, someone else has already been there before her. There's always another bouquet which is Benjamin's. Tomorrow marks that anniversary again, and she's certain Benjamin will return to the grave. That night, Aravind drives to the cemetery and parks his car under cover, waiting quietly until midnight. Just as expected, a black Mercedes pulls up. A man steps out, carrying flowers, and walks toward Francis's grave. Aravind watches from the shadows. But when he moves in to confront him, chaos erupts. The man knocks away Aravind's gun and flees into the night. A chase follows through the fog and darkness, with a second mysterious figure seen watching from a distance. The man escapes. When Aravind finally catches his breath, he realizes the man behind the mask was none other than Manohar. Still confused, Aravind rushes to Manohar's house to confront him. But when he gets there, Manohar is already home and the twin sisters, Sanjana and Anjana, are tied up inside the house. Before he can react, someone strikes him hard from behind. Everything goes black. When Aravind wakes up, his head throbbing, he realizes Anjana is gone. Taken by Manohar. Without wasting another second, he frees Sanjana and takes her with him. While searching for Manohar, Aravind radios the patrol units, giving them the license plate of the black Mercedes. He asks them to alert him immediately if the car is spotted. A few hours later, a report comes in. The vehicle has been seen near an unfinished construction site on the outskirts of the city. When Aravind arrives, he sees the abandoned building. It instantly reminds him of Surindar's testimony, the place where he had woken up after being knocked unconscious. Aravind senses he's close. Inside, he finds Manohar's car parked near the entrance. He tells Sanjana to stay put while he checks the area. Moving carefully through the dim corridors, Aravind finally spots Manohar. A brutal fight breaks out. They struggle fiercely, their guns slipping from their hands and skidding across the floor. Aravind manages to grab it first. But instead of shooting, he throws the gun down to Sanjana below, shouting for her to take it. He warns her that Manohar is in the elevator, heading downstairs to kill her twin sister, Anjana. If she wants to save her, she'll have to stop him before it's too late. Moments later, the elevator doors open and Sanjana, panicked and trembling, fires. The body collapses to the floor. But as the dust settles, she realizes she shot Anjana, not Manohar. The story then flashes back to the rooftop fight. When Aravind overpowered Manohar, the killer's eyes widened in shock. Beneath Aravind's shirt was a scar across his chest with the name Francis carved into his own skin. That's when the truth is revealed. Aravind is Benjamin living under a new identity. The scar was a self-inflicted reminder of his lost twin brother. Moments before Sanjana's fatal shot, Benjamin had lowered the elevator himself, placing Anjana inside. He planned the scene so Sanjana would unknowingly kill her own sister, just as the other twin victims had done before. As the chaos unfolds, Ranjit arrives with backup. Cornered and exhausted, Benjamin surrenders without resistance. Later, in the interrogation room, Ranjit struggles to comprehend the scale of Benjamin's deception. A man who had fooled the entire police force by pretending to hunt the killer, when he was the killer all along. He did it all, Ranjit says, over a childish mistake that happened years ago. Benjamin remains calm. He explains that every murder was his way of delivering justice for Francis's death. His brother's suffering haunted him endlessly. The classmates who tormented Francis went on to live freely, while he was left with nothing. So Benjamin devised a plan that would take years to execute. He knew an ordinary man would never get far against the law. So he became the law itself. He changed his name, joined the force, and worked relentlessly until he earned a transfer to Chennai. Once there, he started tracking down his former classmates. But 4 of them, Sanjana and Anjana, Dhirun and Dhiraj, had disappeared from public record. To draw attention to himself, Benjamin committed the first 2 murders, hoping to be assigned to the investigation. But instead, the case went to Ranjit. Frustrated yet determined, he continued killing, covering his tracks perfectly each time. Then he staged Ranjit's car accident, forcing the department to hand over the case to the brilliant officer they trusted most. From there, Benjamin's path was unstoppable. After eliminating Sudhakar and Meera, he used the twin birds connection to track down the remaining names, extracting the information directly from the headmistress herself. After killing Dhirun, Benjamin makes a crucial mistake by crossing paths with Ranjit, who begins to suspect something isn't right. Benjamin quickly realizes that Ranjit has assigned his men to keep an eye on him. So in order to carry out his final murder, Benjamin brings Manohar into his twisted plan. He threatens to kill Manohar's son if he doesn't cooperate. Under that pressure, Manohar agrees to play his part. He must pretend to be Benjamin, tie up Sanjana and Anjana in his house, and then visit Francis's grave in the black Mercedes. It's all a carefully constructed diversion to keep Ranjit's suspicions away from him. Following orders, Manohar drives Anjana to the unfinished building, unknowingly walking into Benjamin's trap. That's how Benjamin manages to trick Sanjana into shooting her own twin sister. When Benjamin finally confesses everything, Ranjit listens in disbelief. He tells Benjamin that no matter how smart his plan was, it's over now. Then Ranjit explains how he first began to suspect that Aravind wasn't who he claimed to be. After the accident, when Ranjit was recovering at home, he noticed something familiar. The lighter Aravind used was the exact same one he'd seen in the black Mercedes the night of his crash. That detail stuck in his mind. Later, Ranjit secretly looked into Aravind's background and discovered that he'd been adopted and had changed cities years earlier. Curious, Ranjit broke into Aravind's house while he was away. What he found confirmed everything. The place was full of pairs, matching items, duplicate books, and a photo of twin boys. At that moment, Ranjit knew. Aravind and Benjamin were the same person. The brilliant cop was the very serial killer he'd been chasing. When the truth comes out, the entire country is shaken. In court, Benjamin is sentenced to death. For now, he's locked away in prison. But that same night, something unexpected happened. Dhiraj, whose whereabouts had been unknown all this time, suddenly appears at the police station after hearing about Benjamin's arrest and the list of 10 victims. When Ranjit sees his face, he's stunned. Dhiraj is the twin brother of Dhirun, the gang leader from the very first robbery case. It turns out Dhiraj had been just the getaway driver that day. He escaped when the others were caught, while his brother Dhirun ended up in prison. That means the 9th victim couldn't have been Dhiraj because Benjamin couldn't possibly kill someone who was still alive. That realization hits Manohar like a thunderbolt. He remembers the killer always struck on the victim's birthday. And today happens to be the birthday of Dhirun and Dhiraj. It all makes sense now. Benjamin's plan was never to escape prison, it was to get inside, just so he could kill Dhirun himself. By the time Ranjit and Manohar rush to the prison, it's too late. Benjamin has already overpowered the guards and killed Dhirun with his bare hands. The truth behind his final move is chilling. Earlier, while investigating the marketplace, Benjamin had questioned 2 men running a stall and forced them to reveal the twins' whereabouts. When he learned that Dhirun was already behind bars, he changed his plan completely. First, he murdered a random victim so the police would believe Dhirun was dead. Then he used the lighter to jog Ranjit's memory from the night of the crash, making sure the detective followed the exact trail he intended. Every step was a calculated move, like pieces on a chessboard. Benjamin, the master strategist, had thought several moves ahead, ensuring his revenge would be completed. Later, Benjamin tells Manohar that his son doesn't deserve to suffer as he did. Then, quietly and without hesitation, Benjamin swallows a lethal dose of pills. His mission is complete. He never intended to live after his revenge, as he only wanted to reunite with Francis in the afterlife. In the final moments of the story, Manohar visits the cemetery with his young son. They stand before two graves side by side, Francis and Benjamin's. Benjamin had left one last message behind. He requested to be buried right next to his brother and for his heart to be donated to Manohar, so that he could live on and raise his son. Benjamin's final act wasn't about revenge anymore, it was about redemption, ensuring that no child would ever have to grow up as lonely and broken as he and Francis once did. So the moral of the story is, if your twin ever says "don't worry, I'll handle it," maybe just worry. Also, if your detective is too good at solving murders, check if he's the one doing them.